First time since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade back in 2022, Wisconsin's Attorney General says abortion providers in the state have assurances of being able to legally operate.
And this after a Dane County judge upheld her ruling back in July, citing that an 1849 law does not ban consensual medical abortions. However, that court battle isn't over yet. Jason Zimmerman heard from both sides today. He's live in the Fox Valley newsroom with a first alert update. Jason.
Cammie, a Republican prosecutor in Sheboygan County, is already saying that he will appeal this decision. That's where Planned Parenthood has one of its 3 abortion clinics. In the meantime, Democrats, including the Attorney General, are saying that this decision is a huge win. Attorney General Josh Kaul met with reporters Wednesday morning with assurances that abortion providers can legally operate in Wisconsin after a Dane County judge reaffirmed her July ruling.
What that means is that in this case, freedom wins, equality wins, and women's health wins. This is a momentous victory, but we also recognize that this is not the end of the road.
Republicans in the state have interpreted the 1849 law as banning abortion since the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade in 2022, giving individual states like Wisconsin the power to regulate the procedure. However, the Dane County judge did not agree, saying the statute applies to feticide and not consensual medical abortions.
This is clearly an abortion statute that would apply to consensual abortions, and that only a part of it could be applied to feticide, as the court did in 1994. But to say that the whole statute has nothing to do with a consensual medical abortion is ludicrous.
Planned Parenthood resumed abortions at clinics in Madison and Milwaukee in September, and Kaul says he has no concerns about the Sheboygan clinic, where Republican Joel Urmanski is district attorney and defending the 1849 ban in court.
I have every confidence that the DAs who are the defendants in that case will follow the court's declaratory judgment. They've made that clear, and these are officers of the court, prosecutors in the state, and people whose word I'm very confident we can take.
As for what's next, Pro-Life Wisconsin is not giving up.
We hope and pray that the upper courts, the appellate court or the Wisconsin Supreme Court, will see the error of this lower court ruling in Dane County, this incredible error.
If the case does go before the state Supreme Court, as expected, liberals hold a 4-3 advantage right now, at least through the next election in the spring of 2025. Reporting live in the Fox Valley News from Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.